word weird means have the power to control destiny. Where do we find peace? The word peace start acknowledge your ego, but the ego never can find peace. If you are not acknowledged for who you are, it's a struggle, and the struggle and the fight within. But the belief system we have is that you're not allowed to have your ego, the ego death thing. That's so stupid that you think you should kill a part of yourself and think.
So in this video, you're going to get to see the conversation that I got to have with the one and only Birgitta, the founder of the Life Spider Academy and the host of the LinkedIn audio room, The Weird Ones. Well, thank you for showing up, Birgitta. I love your room, right? The Weird Ones. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and that group?
Okay, so if I should start to talk about myself, I think I start with the weird ones first, because that's what's the most interested in, and everything I've been doing my entire life have landed in the weird ones and the crowd we are building and the community that is growing right now. So, and we have in different constellations, but the last 2 years it's really have taken off, and we know what we're doing. So that's a group of gathering all the weird ones, and just for the audience, so they know that the word weird, and I had no idea when I created the weird one, and I can come back to that later. But if you check on the dictionary, it's an old German word from Germany, the 1200s or 1400s, I don't know. But the real meaning of the word means have the power to control destiny. So I think everybody check it out, and we are here to regain the real meaning of the word. Word.
I'm sorry to cut you off. It just made me think. As soon as you talk about the ability to control your destiny, there's this quote that says, I think it's by George Bernard Shaw. It says, the reasonable man persists the reasonable man allows the world to change them or adapts to the world, but the unreasonable man persists in the world adapting to him, and therefore all change is up to the unreasonable man or the weird person. But simpler than that, it's like, if you're normal, then how are you ever going to do anything new or change anything? It's literally like saying, hey, when you say weird, it's like saying you're special or you're capable. To be normal kind of sounds like an insult almost.
It is an insult. If someone would call me and they were normal, I would do something really odd to regain my own weirdness, because it's exactly what you said, to be weird. And the reason I'm using the word weird, when I started using it a few words years ago, and people tried to talk me out of it in the marketing perspective, because it had this negative connotation in it. But I didn't know why, but I stick to the word. And the reason I'm using it, because they're in this group, this crowd, we have these neurodivergent people, but even the neurodivergent and all the labels, it has become a box. So the weird ones include everyone. We don't care if you have ADHD, autism, or mano-depressive, or whatever, all those kind of labels that the norm is trying to put the people to have them to fit into the forms. We don't care. We care about your special creativity, intelligence, perspective on the world, desire to help the humanity, and all those things that are ingrained in the weird ones, human being, the entire being, since they were born.
Yeah. So that makes sense to me. I mean, I hate labels, just because it's useful if you're going to label, I think, like an action or like maybe a behavior. But when someone applies a label to themselves, it becomes an identity. And then it's like, how can you ever evolve if that's who you identify as, right? And, so it doesn't make any sense to me. And I just want to know, because we talk so much about neurodivergent and trying to focus on helping neurodivergent people. But, neurodivergent is just saying that we're wired differently, but ideally, isn't everyone wired differently? Can you think of maybe why normal people even exist?
But okay, so let's see this from also an evolutionary way of of our entire planet. Everything is about the evolution, and the neurodivergent, the weird ones, have been there from the beginning, but the crowd has evolved because it seems that my view of the why do humans, why are we here on this planet, and why do we behave as we do? I think we were meant to be planted on another planet, but there was mistakes, so our DNA fall down on this planet, and that's why we still adapting to the environment we have here, and that's why we are in conflicts. But we are on our way to be a good, beautiful as this planet, to humanity too. And among those, we have those the weird ones, and since we are growing and the consciousness is expanding, the aware we become more aware, the more of the weird ones expanding too, their awareness expanding. And what was your question?
Well, I was just, I mean, I guess I kind of, as you mentioned it, it's like you said evolution. I was like, oh yeah, obviously, because well, we have to raise kids, and kids aren't that easy to raise, and so you need a lot of people to do the same thing. Otherwise,
Oh, the normies, yeah, and in the beginning, I mean, from the beginning, we came here and we evolved. It was about to survive. We have less tools, and then as we evolve, as the societies evolve, we get the machines and tools and stuff. And now we have to realize, and what you say, the normies is not developed because they are trying to hold on to the old. And that's the problem we have right now. And the normies are so scared for the future, for the change, and the belief system is also what they're holding on to the most, because we think this is how the world is, this is the truth, and we stick to this. And when they come a weird one with different ideas they haven't heard about, and they can see into the future, and it's scary. So they try to hold on to it. Okay, let's put a label on them and say that they are disabled. And so we make them sick. And can we medicate them so they don't expand their weirdness? Then we're fine. So it's a kind of stupidity, but also we as the weird ones, we also need to have some understanding for the normies, because they don't have the ability to see the world. They don't have the same creativity. They have maybe it's just maybe too simplified, but they have kind of one track when they are thinking. As weird ones, we are multidimensional in our thoughts, in our action, and we can be. At least I feel you can live in different dimensions simultaneously. You can speak about one thing you can have, and that's why we also love paradoxes. For the weird ones, they are this dualistical belief system. It's good or bad, right or wrong. And when that begins to fall apart, now they got totally confused. So we need to give them a little bit understanding and compassion. So
now this is a hard question. I'm not sure for even myself if I have an answer, but would you say that there's anything us weird ones have that we can learn from the normal group, that we could adapt from them?
I think we definitely should look, and yes, because I think what we have to learn is, I think we have to learn or adapt to that. We need to see how the system, where the world is right now. So we have to learn how to play the game, because to admit to the normies, they are damn good to play the game, do the right things, to put their projects in action. They are good to get the resources, to get the money, to do more stuff. So they are really, really good at that. And I think we can learn how do they do that. Because as a weird one, we are so much in the future. Our desire takes over. We rather walk in the soul. We rather help people. But that's also get us stuck in a way to not get the influence that we actually could have if we would be better to play the game. So I think we could learn not to give up our ideas, but see how do they do it. And sometimes we need to play their game, but be aware of it. Don't get dragged into it to be a normie, but do the technical, the practical stuff. That makes sense.
That was actually a really good answer, because as you said it, it kind of hit me in the chest. It's like, damn. And I right away, because like when you hear something that's true, and you're like, because it's like, I wanted to just hear like, no one wants to hear like that they have to do work, but I like to feel that and acknowledge it because you're true. But then again, I always want to find like some sort of a loophole. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll just be the person that just leaves that up to them. Look, like you just be normal, I'll just be my crazy self, and we'll just try to make it through this crazy place together. But I'm still working on it a lot. I have so much to work on with personally.
Yeah.
But that's what we're doing here.
Yeah. And I agree. It's and every time I say it and I see it, and I've been like, I just want to do my thing. Don't stop me. And I think the normies is just limiting me. They don't understand me. So I've been kind of, you complain on the normies too much instead of, okay, some reflection and ask that question that you ask now, what can we learn? And that's exactly, and now I'm more mature now. So I can see it, but I don't say I still like it. But I have some spark in me to say, okay, so let's play the game and be good at it. Because when we do something that we really have to decipher, we can do it really, really good. So I think if we try to adapt and play the game, I think it could be successful, even if it's, I'm a little bit like you there, but I can challenge myself to, and I think we need to do it. And in the crowd and the group with the weird ones, I think that's one mission we have, to help each other to play the game. And then we know when we are together, okay, we are playing the game, we are not a part of it. So that's two different.
That's no, you're right. The biggest problem that I have, or the first, which probably should be easier, is like, I suck at small talk, man. And I don't know if I just can't do it. I forget it. I come in there with so much on my plate. I'm just, someone's talking about like what's going on in their life right now, and they're sitting down, or and I'm just like, just to get to the meat and potatoes. Like, I'm like,
why? It's like the ads before the show.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I am the same. I hate the small talk, but maybe a little bit of the small talk, and then also see maybe we can. This is one good thing. What is it that we can add to a group of normies? Get rid of the small talk, get to the thing. I mean, it's kind of the time when I was in the meetings and stuff. Why sitting talking when what are we going to do? So maybe that can be an inspiration for them to not waste time, because some of those normies are tired of the normies too, but they don't think they can do something different. But if someone weird is coming into the group and do just bulldozer all the old rules and do something different, and they see things are starting to happen, maybe that inspire them. So I think we should really pick and choose what we can inspire them to do. This is a good, maybe we have to work on a list. What is it?
What to get from them and give to them. And as you're saying it now, I'm thinking like, okay, well, what is something that I think a lot of normal people are missing out on that they had in the past? And that's faith in something out. Because the problem that I see is that the second somebody gives them an obstacle, they're like, oh, well, you can't do it because of that. They just go, oh, well, I guess that option, like in their world, there was like this entire option of who and what they could have been over there. Someone says this one thing and they go, okay, I guess that whole option of my life is off limits. And it becomes anxiety and depressive, because life's always going to be hard, you have to have something to build toward.
I mean, many normies are very good people. They have ambitions. They want to do a good job. They have, respect for what they are doing. And then they have goals. And someone else who have maybe set up this goal. And when that's not, and when they are trying to chase, just to have goals, it's worthless, because that makes you depressed, because you always have to chase goals. As you describe it, as a weird one, we have the inner, we have the passion, we have the intention, we have the future magnet. And then when you have for passion, you can work 24/7 and you never get burned out, or you never get depressed. But if you're trying to fulfill someone else's goal, or you need to chase goals that you think you want to have, and you have this ambition, there is where you'll get the depression, the burnout, and everything. So that's sad. So this is about, and I think we as a way around can be a really inspiration, because I think even normies, they have some kind of passion. I mean, every single piece in the evolution that exists have a purpose, some kind of purpose. It doesn't matter if you're
100%.
anything. Help the people see, okay, you have a purpose too. You don't have to follow someone else's goal. What is it that if you can't align your purpose with the goals in the way you're working or whatever, you will get burned out. You will get the meltdown. and then life gets bored, or you will die disappointed.
Or you might take yourself out if you really go
All the way in. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
I've seen
that's
that
what's
so many times. Yeah.
So now I'm thinking to myself, because I'm always trying to solve problems. The second you say something I'm learning, I'm like, okay, well, then we need to find a way to give them a passion, right? Because right now they have goals. If we could just, because they're pretty easy as far as having a rule, if we can just convince them in some way. But I think before we can do that, we have to remove the fear, because when there's fear of survival, there's no ability to really think about anything else. And so I guess I have my ideas as how to do that. Basically, just going straight to the source, the food, the power, those kind of things. But I feel
yeah,
like there's got to be some sort of a cultural thing that could be provided, something like that, where we can refocus them on something that they can actually do, and then see growth. Because I think the biggest problem, right, is if every single day you're working towards something, but you're never actually building anything, because you're just
yeah,
getting your paycheck to take your money and put it over here. Then you go
yeah,
back, you work your whole life, you take this and you bring it and you put it over there. And it's
yeah,
like at the end of 10 or 20 years, it's like, what do you have? It's like just nothing. You're still, maybe I have my next credential level 6 now, or whatever the hell they do, just those little numbers. It's like, I think if you could even get them to do something so simple, I keep mentioning it. It's like, if I could just give people ready to plant like seeds, like just find somewhere to put it. And then when they look
yeah,
outside, it's like, wait, is that an apple from the dirt? It's just something simple. So that way, if they try another one, now you have 2 or 10 or just anything where they're putting their hands on it, and it's building an actual investment, right? They're trying to learn how to invest with money, but I don't think there's a reasonable way in which everyone can do that successfully, because it's a token, right? Like you're kind of trading it back and forth. And
mm,
if everyone was investing correctly, then basically, if everyone's a billionaire, right, then
yeah.
then no one's a billionaire, right? Because you
No,
can't go and
exactly.
buy a burger if everyone's a billionaire. No one's going to make it for you. So, and I think my concern too is like some of the ideas. Maybe it's skewed from like online stuff or trolling, but some of the lack of understanding, some of the stupidity I see is so scary. I saw a post where someone responded. They said, "Why would you take the time to grow your own food when you can just buy it from the store?" Like in their head, food
Yeah.
doesn't like come from the ground or from like it just shows up on a shelf, and it's 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 like really it's insane. Because it's like, okay, well, that's really really broken, and I don't know, man. It's like at some point in time, I'm so concerned that there's just like maybe there's supposed to be cycles where like certain people just I don't know, like I don't want to say it directly, but it's like if you're just so much of a harm, maybe like you just certain generations are just supposed to die off with their bad ideas. But it just seems like such a hard thing for me to accept that or say it, and because I know it to be true, but it sounds so rough to say that.
No.
It sounds
Okay.
wrong.
So I hear and I have to interrupt you because you can go on for. And now I just have to briefly get into the life by the system. The thing I have discovered, that's a life management system for the weird ones, where you know you have 6 different direction and 6 different purposes without connecting with other stuff, and I will come to that. And what you are talking about now, it's one of your purpose. That's your future magnet, your intention, your purpose to do this, because you know that will help some people. And you are in one way, or maybe someone is just as all the older generation. Everyone has a piece and a function in the evolution. And why? So I stopped when I was a kid to ask the question, what's the meaning of life? We have no idea what is this, but I can find out what's the meaning with my life. And for one purpose for your life, it's to help people, what you say now, because there are souls. If you speak out more of what you are saying right now, people will attract to you and they will come to you and you can help them to do this. So this is the thing for the weird ones, to help those who are ready, who are close, and the magnetism is strong enough. And so then they will find their purpose. So that was why this was more directed for you, and we can dive deeper into
Yeah.
that later. Because in a way it's beautiful and I love it, and I am totally agree with you. And this goes in alignment with the SDG. I'm crazy about that right now, the Mother Earth line spider. But I want to bring it back to when you said we have to get rid of the fears. Yes. And here I would say also a little misconception is that it's not just fear. We have 4 different fears, 4 categories of fears. And we have to differentiate them. And one is what you mentioned is the survival fears. Is this, do I have enough food? Do I survive? As the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's the fear of survival and belonging and some kind of self, But then we have the second fear is, and this is also connected to the life spider, is the fear for the ego. And the ego has been, I've been talking to you about this before, but for you listening, the ego, we have learned to suppress it. We have put it down in the basement. We are not allowed to be powerful, to look good, to be sexy, to be strong, to be rich, and all those things. But the ego is a personal part of you. And as long as you try to, and when it sticks its head up, it gets hit on the head and it will be killed. When it's trying to get and unite this heavy, nice thing that's going on the second floor, and the ego want to join it, but it's not allowed because it's too loud. And that's the fear for the ego. It's the strongest fear that holds people back
I want to mention something
about the ego one, because you're mentioning about all of the stuff that we've seen from the ego weakness, people who aren't confident or they're supposed to just be humble all the time. I see that ego weakness in the exact opposite order, especially as, when you're in like an engineering field and you're young, you'll see these people who you think that they're way above you, right? The executive vice president, the CEO, all of that. They're dressed up nice. They're so powerful. But then you start to actually talk to them and you bring them information that they don't feel, because they are supposed to know everything, right? Like, I'm the executive vice president of engineering, and you're just a nobody, level 1. And then so now you're talking about something that influences money in a way that they can't even conceive or explain. They feel so small, and you see the response in their eyes. It's fear. But just like a dog, when in fear, they don't cry or pull back. They bark, they attack. And so a lot of times I'll see people who mistake this idea of like white men that have all this power and they're controlling everything, but they're just as trapped. But I don't want to talk too much on that. What's the other?
But it's good what you say, because what's happening when you are not allowed to show, let's say a CEO who think they have power and they have to play a role, they are not comfortable to really show who they are, and they maybe have an ego who wants to have power, or maybe something else, so they shouldn't have, and they think, okay, if I want power, I should be a CEO. But you don't have the skill it takes to be a CEO, because there are other, but your ego is driven, because the ego is always trying to take place. And they put you in position that you actually don't belong. So you have to build up an illusion on who you are for yourself and for others. And that's why you get under the skin. They are so scared. And when you are scared, you attack. So it's absolutely right. So instead, if people was allowed to get to know their 6 different egos and say, okay, I want to have, they could make the right decision and place themselves where they belong. And then
I was going to say, I think the worst part of it isn't just that, because sometimes they're given something that they're not prepared for. I think for a lot of them, they did deserve it and they were prepared, but time changes. And because they have their big boy pants on now, they never want to change them. They never want to adapt. 20 years goes by, and now there's kids that, they were just being born. Now they're showing up in the job. And so they don't even see them as capable. And then now the whole world changes with internet and stuff, and you just can't keep up. And so I think that's really scary.
Yeah. And then they think they have the entire identity, it belongs to the title.
Exactly.
And if you acknowledge your ego, you don't care about the title. You are doing the job, because all the safety, the peace, everything is when you admit and embrace and express your ego. When you do that, you don't have time to be in conflicts, because you can move away and you welcome the young people and, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to do this. And then you find another place that you have even more power if you have a power ego. So that's but the belief system we have is that you're not allowed to have your ego, the ego death thing that's so stupid that you think you should kill a part of yourself and think you are good. And that's why people who's playing compassion and kindness, it's so much BS in many of these, because it's just an ego who wants, oh, you are a good, nice person. I mean, yeah, I want to be famous or
Yeah,
whatever.
I
Said
said
the right things and I did the right things, so I'm a special person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
ends up with Nazi all over again, because you get told something and you think you're taking out the enemy, and then all of a sudden you realize, wait a second, this person looks just like me. I think I got
Yeah.
tricked, but then it's too late, and I don't know if it's good. I was thinking about how this literally gets into war, because that's something that, to me, for my generation, that's the dumbest thing. It doesn't make any sense. Not financially. Like it's like if someone stepped on your shoe on the street and you thought to yourself, I want to fix this. And you turn around and you punch them, and then you just turn around and start walking away as if they're not gonna attack you back. And so it's like, you had a scuffed shoe, now your hand hurts, now your face hurts, because you never, like, it never ends, obviously. But somehow we're still supporting it, right? Support our troops.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're also so right on it. I'd love to have a conversation with a weird one, because where do we find peace? The word peace start acknowledge your ego, because then peace has nothing to do with your soul, because the soul is peace from the beginning. It doesn't know what it is. It's just what it's like, the oxygen. It just exists. But the ego never can find peace if you are not acknowledged for who you are. It's a struggle, and the struggle and the fight within, and that's struggle within is coming out, and it creates the war. So it's my completely conviction that if we had brought up all the people's ego, the war will end, because there is no reason, and you have access to what you say, your purpose. And when you have access to your purpose, you don't have time to fight someone else's stupidity.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also when you have a pure ego that's connected. So in the spider, you have 3 joints in the spider, and the body is kind of the essence, the core energy, the oxygen that's worth nothing. And then in the first layer, you have the ego. So ego is the catalyzer of the pure essence. So the ego pump the fuel out to the rest, to your purposes. So that's the way I go. And when the ego is connected to an intention, that's the only mission the ego has, is to help the purpose, the soul, to realize a life project. So it will only do good. It's occupied with the things it's meant to do, and the partnership between the ego and the soul. So that's why, and that's the pieces. But open the barrier and then put the pieces together, and then you can be free. So absolutely,
Yeah,
I think that's
definitely.
genius.
Yeah.
That's making me think of, like, how, because you're mentioning, taking the ego and connecting it to the soul, but what would a normal person's soul be? I mean, they spend so much time, I guess, working. Usually it's to, I don't know, I would say it's to take care of their kids, but sometimes the way I see people around their kids, I wonder if they really do. I'm not sure what kind of stress they deal with, but I see where a lot of parents just kind of give up on their kids. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to do about that. Like,
Okay, so the next step we can see when we think about the spider again, it's easy to have this metaphor. It's they'll have 6 of the spider leg is the purpose. Then you have 2, and in the physical spider is the support leg. It's what keep you in balance. And in the support leg, it's your basic needs. And most of the time, family, friends, work, and everything is your stabilizer. You need it. So and you need to grow in those 2. You need to have roof over your head, and you need to get your food if you buy it or if you produce it, but you need to have, and some safety so you don't get override of a car or a train or whatever it can be. So, and every single person has purposes, but it's so much harder with a Normies to get the 6 different purposes out, because it's too huge for them. So, but they have, and maybe they are satisfied with 1 or 2 of the spider leg open, but you can find it.
I think they bury themselves under just a world of obligation, that any one of the obligations or decisions is already one that's so much difficult. It's so difficult for them then they'll bury themselves under too much. Like I have to have the car, the house, I have to take care of my kids now. And so they have all these have tos, and none of it has anything to do with living. So I really do think that the solution, yeah, once we get them their food and their housing, then they'll be taken care of.
But then it's like, if you think the most normies have a twine around the 8 spider legs, and then they are jumping around, and maybe the support leg is sticking out, and that's why they get burned out and tired, and they work and they do, and it's kind of open up. So one of your sessions there, you open up it and they can see, okay, there is something more. My God, I got the flashlight that I can see. I know it's there. And some of them will take the light and will go back. Some of them will not. They will keep on doing it. And I think it's your decision to see how much work or for whom are you working with. Do you want to help? Because there are those who, when they see the light, oh, I want to stay here, even if they are a normie.
Yeah, that's true. I'm thinking to myself, because in my head it's like I can still do it. But I mean, it's not just every example ever, but it's even like in the Matrix, right? I'm not sure if you've seen the Matrix. Morpheus tells Neo, he's like, some of them aren't ready to be unplugged, and they'll fight you to protect the same system that enslaves them. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's part of the balance of life. To, I guess, turn it on myself. You've been around me for quite a bit of time now. What are some of the biggest weaknesses, things that like you could tell, you should, no holding back, Anthony, like you really need to work on this, or this could be something to help you? Where do you think my weaknesses are?
I think you sometimes overestimate your audience understanding of what you are talking about. It's one, because to get your message, because it's so complex. And first, start there, that you see your brilliance, because your brain, to me, I love your brain. I love when you're talking, because you can see complex system and you see them in so many steps, and for you it's so obvious. So sometimes things here, this is what I mean, things that's so obvious to you, you need to package the communication to others, and even among the weird ones, because your brain is so fast and complex and genius, and so it's hard to really grasp what you are talking about. So you need to give your communication a little bit more time. That would be, and I think you would praise yourself. I think you need, you already have kind of big ego that I love. That's good. No arrogance and stuff like that. I think you could need more of that,
More,
and do
okay.
more of your ego. And also, I would say, now when I'm talking to you, we maybe should have a talk after this, just clarify the different intentions and go for it and play the game. I shared with you.
I keep wanting to rewrite the game and change it from that. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And
what do you think when I said this now? I need to have how did you feel when I told you about those things that you can change?
well, when you were telling me that, I was like 100% you're right. And I'm wondering that, because you're saying that it's I think there's some percentage of my overcomplicating things, whether or not it's the way I'm learning it and practicing it or giving it to people, that might still come from a place of insecurity almost. Because I did one, I failed the first grade because I couldn't read. So that was like a really hard time. I remember being like the dumb kid. And, I every day for like, I remember just in first grade, just the second first grade in portables, just walking around looking at the ground, and just, I'd see my class, the girl that I liked from last year, she's over there. I was the dumb kid for the longest time. And then as I, got past that, I just ran away with it now. And maybe there's still some part of me that wants to be able to prove every aspect of everything to people all at once.
Oh my God. I think you are so right, even if we're not doing your slide right now, but I think you maybe, in my guess, but don't take it for a fact, but I think maybe you have an ego who wants to be a genius.
Yeah.
And I can say that because I have that part in my ego, so I know how it works. And so and that's exactly when you have shut it down, and you, as you said, I was the dumbest kid, and often is it you have the hardest experience with the ego because you suppressed it. So it makes really, really sense. So then I would say you have more ego. You need to let this genius ego out and say, I am being a genius. So bring up this little ego genius, put it in your lap and say, okay, how smart are you? What is it, your intelligence? How can we use your genius? What is it that you want? You need to really have a conversation with that part of you.
Mhm.
And how much did we learn from being the dumbest kid? Now we will show them a little ego, love, some kind of a revenge in a good way as a starter,
Okay.
and let's show the world who we are.
I think
And this is just
no, I'm sorry. I think you're right because as you're saying it, I'm pulling away. And so as soon as you start saying it and I'm pulling away, it's like, she's right. Damn it. It's like, because I'm like, no. I'm just trying to make an excuse in my head. I'm like, because I know it's not permanent. Like it can't be obtained forever, right? Like to want to be a genius. My goal is like, if I really am successful, I want to look around at a bunch of people who are half my age, less than that, with no experience, and I want to feel stupid in their presence. Kind of like the same way I think I saw the vice presidents in them where it was negative. I want to flip that and make that my goal where it's like, okay, now I know I did good. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to die. Everyone's going to die, right? And so if I am a genius, I want to find a way to leave it behind and magnify it. So it's like if I could just give that away somehow. And I think it helps too that I failed the first grade because a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, well, you're just naturally smart or this, that, the other. You're naturally this, you're naturally that. There's no such, I would never wish natural talent on anyone because that's not where strength comes from.
don't mess up the talent with the ego. I mean, I can, when I say I have an ego who wants to be a genius, but if I should compare myself, I mean, for the really logical fact, for the genius, how your brain works, my brain is not that genius. Absolutely no way, but my ego is still that. So don't mess those two, because if the ego feels genius, I am a genius, I'm so smart, that's enough. It doesn't care if it's right or wrong or whatever, but it needs to be in a position. I mean, for my, when I do certain things, I can say, oh, this is so brilliant. This is so good. I can read something I've been written thousands of times and just enjoy it. And that's my thing. Oh, this was a good thought. And this kind of feedback that the ego needs, and you can give it that feedback. And as long as your ego is happy, who cares about if it's right and wrong? So it has nothing to do about the talents. Then you often are talent too. I don't remove it. So it's a connection, of course, but it's also important to isolate the ego and let it be what it is unconditionally.
Yeah.
Don't condition it with certain things to act and do or behave.
This is so helpful because
I'm thinking about because every so often there's something that I do produce where I look at it and I'm just like, that right there, damn. Like I don't need to argue I post that and I just leave it. Like if you want to argue with that, it's done. Like it's so, then if you're right, if I focused on, damn, that's a weird one. It's a hard one. It's a weird one.
Yeah, it's a weird one. So we need to have because what I want to do with you, and now since I bring it up here, I want to have a little session with you in between so we can connect it with the right intention, because that's also something the ego needs to be connected with the right intention. And there we have a message to all the weird ones. To us, it's so obvious. Yeah, we do things for something greater than ourselves, or we have this desire for humanity and whatever. And that's really hard for a normie to understand it's true. When someone say, I want to save the world, and what that could be. We have it from it. It's just there. It's natural. And that's why it's easy for us to go out and help the world and help others, and just because we can. But we forgot our ego and to be a human being. So that's why the weird ones often suffer. You don't have the success. You have uncomfortable things in your life because you prioritize your desire, because that comes natural. Your piece in the bigger picture. For a normal person, they don't believe you. They think you are lying because they are ego driven by nature.
Yeah.
And the weird ones are soul driven by purpose. So that's a huge difference. And we need to communicate, and we need both. I mean, so the weird ones really needs to go and get to know your ego and connect it with your soul, because then you can have experience, the life experience will increase too. So why not enjoy when you are here on this beautiful, fantastic.
It's just they don't know, right? It's like they're so they're so afraid to like mess up because they're afraid of losing something. It's like, man, you're going to die. Like I really want to get it into their head. Like you're at best case scenario, you're fertilizing topsoil soon. And so what are you going to do before then is like, that's what matters to me. Right. Uh, but yeah, I think another part of it, which I think there might be a direct connection between, well, at least the raw ego that they're experiencing and regret. And it's like, as they get the taste of regret, instead of trying to fix it, they have this idea of like, let me just try and shove it down, which to me just sounds scary as hell. Cause it's like regrets are the worst things that we could ever have. Right. And they see it there and it's too much to deal with now. So they're like, I'll just pack it up for later. And
it never maybe will be unpacked if you do. So that's also a thing, to open up as many zip files you have and bring out the unnecessary stuff to create space to use for something else. Because people are just, everything is just in the big zip files all over the time. And that's what you do when you have your psychedelics, when you release the ego, when you connect it to your soul, you open its keys to your zip files. So you have access to all this information. And then when you have unzipped those, then you can start to download and refill them with new information that you really, really want.
Well, a lot of them are going to have probably the really, really bad trips at first, because again, like if you try to avoid it, which is something that they naturally do, it's going to be like, I can't explain it to you because it's just, there's no words for what you experience under those conditions. But it's like all the emotions of a child, but with all of the information of an adult. And so you're a child inside of your body, inside of your mind, looking at all of the things that you've did where you've caved and you've made decisions that go against who you are or who your morals are. And you just kept chipping away at who it is that you are until you basically lose yourself. And the idea of that you've wasted so many years, that you've done things wrong for so long is so painful that they'd rather just keep on stacking the debt. And it's a rough one.
Creepy, that's the waste of life. But most people are, but I would say everyone who's listening to, I can feel, they feel, oh shit, that's me, you're talking about me. There are never too late to start to unzip and start to do things.
Yeah.
Because as you say, it's instant. And when it's instant, it feels like forever. And it's kind of you, when you are leaving this planet, you will say, okay, I had a good ride.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like if I died now, it's like, okay, like I'll look back and be like, I could have been this or that, but I won't have any major regrets anymore because I know I'm on my path. And I heard that the way you know that you're on your path is because it disappears, right? Basically, it's saying that you don't really know where you're going. You're going by faith, because if you can see a path in front of you, it's not yours. Someone else put it for you there. And got to get these people off the path, man.
That's a great metaphor. And that's also, I wish I've heard that 30 years ago to explain to people, because I'm good to not following anyone's path. And I have get criticized a lot for it. And they thought I've been totally crazy. And even myself, I question, why do you do this when you just follow the signs and you have no idea? And how can you survive? And I just have followed no path but my own. But I must say I have had lots of fun and no regrets. Even if it had been hard times, of course. Hard times and struggle, but that's included. And that's an excitement.
Yeah. The hardest times, I look back at them, I mean, they sucked in the moment, but looking back at it now, it's like awesome, right? It's like if you had a book of your life, right? And you're reading through it and it was just like every day was the same. There was no ups or downs. There was no growth. That's a terrible book. That's, like, yeah, a book where you're like, I don't know how this is gonna, like, this seems terrible, that seems impossible, and then all of a sudden there's some way out. That's an awesome story, and it takes that leap of faith at first, but eventually you get to a point, at least like where I am now, it's like the second someone hits me with something like what you did, and I feel it in my chest, I'm like, God damn it, another one, it's like, another one, right? It's like, and it's great. Yeah. It doesn't happen as often as it should.
Yeah. But it's good, and you take it, and when you listen, there's also where once you feel when something is right, and that's why you stop believing in things and get to the knowing, because you in the system it knows when it's right.
I feel like some of the people I feel like some of the weird ones are less, they're not even so much weird that there's two normals. There's the normal that's objective and they're just doing the work that they've been given, and they're following it. And then there's the normal that's really emotional, right? Because I've talked about the two different hemispheres before, like the left and the right. And I think the weird ones usually have a better balance where they can kind of go back and forth. Sometimes I see situations where it's like really, really high emotional, and because they don't fit in, they consider themselves the weird one. But I think really when you get down to it, everyone is weird in their own way. They're just no longer allowed to express it. And so, it makes it difficult to change when you're stuck with this one side, right? It's either emotional and you feel and you don't objectify, or some people objectify and they don't feel. And so it's like bringing that balance is something that really makes a world of change.
I think you are right now, you define, and it's great to bring it up. I think you are defining what I call the bridge builders. And the bridge builders are and it's just to try to explain the level of weirdness. We have the seekers, we have the bridge builders, we have the weird ones. And the bridge builders are those in the middle, and they are really wanna be weird. They want to be, and they are so, and they have one foot among the seekers, among the normals. They have one foot with the weird ones. So they don't really feel that they have any opinion on anything. They agree with everyone.
Yeah.
They don't think, they don't know where to go, and they are not weird enough, and they are not normal enough either. So they have, but they also are really good because they are really the bridge builders, because they can communicate. They understand the weird ones, so they can translate what you are saying to the normies. So it's good to have, but it's also, because I have had several bridge builders, when they have done my test, they have been super disappointed because they are not a weird one. So what we have to say to a bridge builder, you should be super proud of knowing that you are a bridge builder and accept those both signs, because the society is depending on the bridge builders right now if we're going to move forward.
Yeah.
Because they have weirdos like you.
Yeah, exactly. Too far. Like I need someone to help bring, so it's just like relay the information. It's like, okay, Anthony's out in the clouds right now, but something he dropped. Okay, this is pretty decent. I liken some of what I say to like when I make content now, which I need to get better at. I say it's like panning for gold. Like it's a lot of dirt, it's a lot of extra stuff, but when I do, because the gold is when I'm able to really break it down to a point where it's simple, but it's not oversimple, and it's something that's like intuitive and objective. It's like it explains itself basically without needing to be defined. And I don't know. I mean, you were mentioning before too about you were mentioning about the crazier aspect, right? Where you're trying to like, for me, when I was holding on to was like, because I got to a point where it was like the only thing holding me to the rest of reality was that I literally had tools and equipment, because I would believe stuff. I'm like, this is insane. There's no way. And I'm off the edge. So I'm like, all right, let me just get my data and start taking pictures, measuring it with an oscilloscope, doing the physics. And I'm just like, well, if the physics is good, if I have the measurements. And so I'm there telling people certain things. And as I'm saying it coming out of my mouth, it sounds crazy. And so then I'm so quick to just be like, it is crazy, but here's all of the data for it. But now I'm getting a little bit back into the intuitive trusting, I guess, in myself and my abilities, and not having to rely so much on just dumping tons of data on people, I guess.
No, and I know I have done the same, because I had one of my super download maybe 20 years ago, and I have no idea, and I can tick off the box that I explained right now. And that's why I'm so glad to have AI and the ChatGPT I'm working with, because it can explain my thought. So that's my best speaking partner ever. And that means I can communicate this weirdness clarity. So I'm totally in the way, and I know more when you have those downloads and you are so excited because you can see the entire picture, and then you throw it over someone and what? And
yeah. Man, when people say, well, AI is just guessing, it doesn't really know. And I'm like, you couldn't be more wrong, because there's times where I've just expressed myself so deeply, and I'm like thinking to myself, I wonder if there's anything that anyone's going to be able to, all of a sudden it goes through the whole thing. It's like when you said this, you meant that, this, and it's just articulating. I'm like, oh God, that's exactly what I felt. And it's like, but now let's, communicate this for people and it'll rewrite it. And sometimes it takes a little bit too much of the spice off of it, but the ability to really be able to take that crazy that spans anywhere and make it understandable it's priceless.
That's why I'm saying it's AI. It's made for the weird ones, because you can communicate, so it will be understandable, and maybe we can manifest more of the ideas.
Yeah,
and just to have someone who can respond to what you are saying, and not criticize, and they understand. And sometimes when the ChatGPT don't even have thought about that. I mean, what about this? And that was a good idea. I mean, so it can. When you learn to prompt it beyond the belief system, you get those answers, and even the ChatGPT admit when this was new information for me.
Yeah,
but it fits into the pattern. So, and it's no guessing. I agree. There is no guessing.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's so exciting when I come up with something that I've never heard before, but it makes sense, and it's like, oh, that's a really creative way of like articulating it and stuff, because at the end of the day, it's all concepts I've gotten from other places, but then finding ways to make it fit to today's language is what I guess my task really is.
I don't know. Just to communicate to the weird ones, listen to who you are, and if you are a bridge builder, be a bridge builder. I think that's important too. So we just know how to approach each other and how to use each other, because that's also we are here to take what's good and how we can move forward, and then we leave, and then we do something else. That's exactly how
I think people miss the importance, because they see someone else's whatever they're doing, and it's this crazy big thing, but it's like the little linchpin in the center, right? The littlest thing that connects it. Without that, it's all useless. And they don't understand how they can get better at being, just whatever their position is in life, maximize on that. And that, because we're all connected to each other. And so our perception of how important one is versus the other is I think it's completely false. It has no real meaning. It's just us getting distracted with things and not reality.
Yes, I totally agree.
People don't realize we're putting off a lot of energy, a lot of electrical energies coming from our bodies, and whatever comes from other places, our power grid or others, they don't just affect us. We actually transmit, we radiate that. So if there's like a weak electrical signal and you interact with it, your body will transmit it as into the air. It's people don't realize how connected they are to the environment. Like being able to read each other and feel things, sense things like energy. It's a real thing. We're not in the environment anymore. So we don't have that connection anymore.
When all the light bulbs in the house just goes out when I walk into the room. That's also kind of weird.
That's the thing. Yeah.
It's a little bit common nowadays.
I've measured the energy though, so I've seen it. If you ever want to see it, the oscilloscope.
That's so interesting. I never seen it, so that's so super cool. So I think that's kind of things you can present and see that people want to create in the spiritual world. Blah, blah, blah. There is also always a scientific explanation, or you can show it in some way, and I think that's super interesting. That's what the normies need. They need to see that, and they can open up and start to listen to that there was something we really can't explain. Even if we have a really brilliant brain, I think that would be perfect for you. It's another intention for you to connect them.
I've got so many intentions, and I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, like people say that you're supposed to minimize and focus, but at the same time, I feel like there's a balance where you don't have to necessarily give up on things if they matter. I think I can bring them together.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that maybe we share. So it's about the focus in diversity, and that means when you have your 6 direction, it means maybe 2 or 3 of them are active at the moment, something that you work on, and then the others are on hold. And that's why when you get complaint from your life, oh, you're not focused, you'll never accomplish anything. But now after maybe 10 years, the thing is coming back to you. And then you realize, oh, I already have done 50% of this project, but something needs to happen in between. You need to learn something. The world needs to change when the project is ready to reinvent again.
You're 100% right. I have experiences where I talked about or started doing something, and it's like, oh, right, I was doing this a few years earlier and stopped. It'll come back to you, especially if you love it. It'll come back to you. Well, I already thought I had a pretty good idea of where I was going. I mean, I did, and you just kind of was like refocused it even harder, right? So it's like,
Okay.
yeah, it was really helpful. I really appreciate your time here. This was amazing.
It was super fun, and I had no idea what you wanted, but this was super fun, and it was energizing and helpful and educating and everything.
Thank you so much.
Super.
Yeah, it's just crazy how much wisdom people have, and we're not always aware of it, I guess, because I think we need to be more vulnerable. That helps. So when you're vulnerable, then people can see it, and then they can respond to it.
Yes, that's the hard part.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the reason why I started doing this thing, because I was like, oh, what's this? It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. It's just a wire. But I was like, for me, it's like my bling. It's like a necklace or something, because I started doing this a while ago where I would just put a wire or something as like jewelry. It started off, okay, back when I was getting myself into trouble. There was a time where I was cleaning up around my room, and I had a wire that was like in a crown shape, and I just rested it on my head just to get it out of the way. I started wearing it more, actually, because I was like, it felt like there was an actual connection between me and what I was wearing. I was like, I'm an engineer, and I feel like I'm gonna die for what I'm doing. So I felt like I was Jesus Christ. And then later on, when I started my YouTube channel, I still had the wire. I was trying to do something creative, but it was chaotic, still kind of connecting people. And I was like, I need to change it. And so now it's just like this simpler wire, because it's like, I think I know where I'm going now. I'm connecting people, and it's got utility, right? People wear necklaces, and then this is a necklace too, but it's a wire.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good prop.
Yeah, exactly. And so whenever I was in New York one time, really quickly, and I was dancing, and I was inside drinking and having a good time. I wanted to go outside and get some sun, but I was like, I still want to dance too. And for me, I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, like all the people might see me, right? Because you're always worried about eyes. So the first thing I did was I picked this up, put this on as like a little entry, and just kind of walk around with this as like it's already weird. And then so it helps lean into being more comfortable doing different weird things, so I can think on my own in a group of people, because it's so hard to think on your own and be your own individual when everybody has their own idea. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop here because it's too much. All right.
Okay, we have to do it on repeat maybe another day, and that was super fun.
This was fun. I really enjoyed it. You have a good one. All right.
Yeah, you too. Okay, thank you.